Welcome once again to another edition of the Pennant Grace minus the Grace. We are lacking the knowledge, professionalism, and attractiveness, but we gain in age, weight, and baldness. So my partner, Emily Grace McWhorter, will be joining us shortly from Tuscaloosa on her day job there with the next round, giving coverage of Alabama football. Got a lot to talk about. Before we get into it, want to make sure that we hit up our sponsor. Sponsoring this show, but also sponsoring me, and that's Roback. You go to Roback.com right now, enter code PG20 at checkout. It's going to save you 20% style and profile through the summer, 20% off using code PG20. A lot of activity going on in the back room. We maybe have a Jim Dunaway joining us here. We're trying to communicate through sign language. So a lot to get to. Trade deadline. Interested in your guys' thoughts as far as what the Braves did in the trade deadline. So some say overall trade deadline was a bit of a dud. I tend to agree with that. It was a little underwhelming as far as big names, big splashes, surprising moves, things of that nature. Joined here by the one and only Jim Dunaway, Pennant Grace, Tampa Bay Rays correspondent, Jim Dunaway.
Listen, I'll jump in here until E.G., who's pulling football duties, until she jumps on here with us. But I was excited when I saw the Braves move there because I didn't think they were going to do anything. And to me, when you're going to get Harris back, you're going to get Albies back, you're going to get Fried back. So those are almost like they're not really trade deadline moves, but those are additions you're going to have back to the lineup by the time you get to the playoffs. And now, right now, the baseball season is so long that there are such ebbs and flows that the Phillies have been up here. They're now just naturally coming back to a normal place now. And what's happened? The accordion's happened. The Braves have closed the gap. And you're going to get healthy again. I think you're in a pretty good spot right now.
You and I talked Monday. We talked about it on the show as well about your Tampa Bay Rays, how despite having a winning record, were sellers. I think really the only major selling going on was in the state of Florida with the Marlins and the Rays. Now that the dust is settled on that, and you shared with me a little bit of the franchise's philosophy, where are you at as far as Tampa goes with like maybe a letter grade on the trade deadline for Tampa?
Well, I just hate that this is going to end our streak. I don't know how far we go back, but we're on a long streak of making the playoffs.
Right.
I don't want to. It's not to 2018, but maybe it is. It's been that long that we haven't missed the playoffs, which for a small market team like Tampa Bay has been pretty amazing. And we have the philosophy of trading one and getting three back, 1 for 3, and we get prospects. Rarely do we get somebody back that's going to go right to the big leagues, which is great for those that are watching in Montgomery. The Montgomery Biscuits, AA franchise, you get a lot of the guys who eventually become stars in Tampa playing in Montgomery. I was a little disappointed because I don't want that streak of consecutive postseason trips to end. 52-50, 52 wins, 50 losses, and then you're only 3.5 back in the wild card, and then Paredes goes off somewhere else, and then Eflin's to the Orioles,
right,
who you're chasing,
right,
in the same division, and you send Arozarena all the way to the Mariners, another American League team. Really, I didn't like the guys you got back for Arozarena. I thought you could have gotten more back for him. So, the Braves built what they have now by having a great farm system. The only way Tampa Bay survives is having a great farm system. So you have to make these deals occasionally, but not to me when you're in a playoff hunt. And more importantly, I know not a lot of people care about Tampa Bay, but they just now, $1.4 billion stadium project gets passed finally last night. But the public funds, about $500 million of public money, before the trade deadline, as soon as that $500 million public money gets approved, that's when they started dumping the players. It felt like, okay, maybe they're building up for the new stadium in 2028, which I guess now is where my mind becomes focused.
Well, for any team to make consecutive playoffs for that type of run is impressive. For a team, A, with Tampa's payroll, and B, in Tampa's division, and never more so than this year. What a murderer's row that AL East is, and you're competing against traditional powers as far as top of the payroll with the Yankees and the Red Sox. And as you and I discussed, now Baltimore's all in payroll-wise as well. They're willing to pay, do whatever it takes. They're serious contenders as well. Incredible run by Tampa. Very interesting strategy. They obviously have to be very creative in how they stay competitive. For Atlanta, we said all along on this show the biggest need was an outfield bat. They got an outfield bat in Jorge Soler. Obviously, the big reunion talk, getting Soler and also getting Luke Jackson. Luke Jackson, nice to have him back. Very popular with Braves fans. Part of that night shift. So critical to that 2021 World Series. Really came along with the deal, though. This was really about Soler. As the news came out about Ronaldo Lopez, the likelihood of getting another starter dwindled from what I believe was already a pretty low spot, considering the market for those and what you would be paying for one of those starters. Did see a lot of talk about an infielder. They did not go that route, but I give that a B+ for getting Jorge Soler. The numbers on the season aren't super impressive at all. 238, 40 RBIs, 12 home runs. He is playing a lot better as of late. As expected, they have him in the leadoff spot. That was the spot that he was in for that World Championship. Luke Jackson, by the way, 5.40 ERA in 36 appearances with 33 strikeouts. But his last 7 games, ERA at 3.38. So he playing better as well.
But didn't Soler, didn't he do the same thing back in 2021? What were his numbers not exactly what they are now?
Even lower.
And then he came to the Braves and just it clicked for him.
Yeah, so when he came over from Kansas City, had a batting average that started with a 1 and caught fire with Atlanta, and obviously especially down that playoff stretch. So very good point. They got him and was able to turn it around there in Atlanta. Obviously, Braves fans, we hope for the same thing this time.
And I would say, sometimes people say, well, how can that happen? I mean, obviously it's not just, the ballpark or anything. Sometimes that can factor in. But when you've got better talent around you, sometimes you get better pitches, right, to hit. You're just in a situation where maybe you don't feel like you have to carry the lineup as much as he did in Kansas City. And he came in the Braves lineup and had a little bit more talent around him that I think he got a little bit more comfortable and got into a good place. And you may see the same thing with the Giants. The Giants aren't stocked with not one of the best lineups hitting-wise in Major League Baseball. He comes into a Braves lineup as that gets healthier, surround him by he's leading off, but surrounding him with the Olsons and the Rileys getting hotter and those guys in the lineup, then maybe he can be a lot more comfortable, and comfort really turns into better numbers in baseball.
I agree. And another person that could benefit from that less pressure, I believe, is when you look at that leadoff spot in Jared Kelenic. Ate crow on Monday about Kelenick's performance, how great he did moving into that leadoff spot, and then how much he cooled from that and how poorly he had been playing. Maybe having that lifted off will rejuvenate him. He had a good day, especially their game 2 there in Milwaukee, playing in front of his hometown fans. Had a lot of family there, so that could affect. It's not just Jorge Soler. That could affect other players as well, as they've changed around that batting order. Going to that Brewers series, so tremendous series for the Braves. No, not a sweep. Milwaukee, one of the best teams in the National League. Braves take 2 out of 3 from Milwaukee, but there was good in all 3 of those games. A lot to take away from for Braves fans in those 3 games. Want to start off with the Milwaukee Brewers for you, Jim Dunaway.
Okay.
To me, when they switched back to the logo that I grew up with Robin Yount, and going back to the color scheme, the royal blue, the uniforms, the logo, looks like a cool stadium. I'm a big fan of that look, Milwaukee. Where are you on the Brewers?
Very consistent, and I think they're a team to be reckoned with, to win that division, yes. But when they get to the playoffs, they just don't seem to have all the parts every year to make a run for a championship. But they're a consistent playoff franchise and consistent playoff model. And when they lost Counsell, their manager this year, to Chicago, I think a lot of people thought that it was going to fall apart, and it didn't happen. here's Milwaukee again, top of the standings, and look like they can finish the deal and make the playoffs from that division.
Yeah, we saw some talk of that. What teams in the NL Central can take advantage of that? And Milwaukee has ruled that division all season long. And they're like Tampa in the sense of very consistently getting to the playoffs. Now, they have not been to the World Series, but they do a good job of getting to the playoffs. Very good team. To win any series is good. To take 2 or 3 from such a good team, carry over some of the momentum you had in winning the last 2 games of that Mets series to take 2 or 3. Now, game 1 was that loss, but a 3-8 loss, the positive to take away from that, I thought Grant Holmes was fantastic. I love the story of Grant Holmes, a guy who's played so long in the minor leagues to get his chance. He's a reliever, has been very popular this year amongst Braves fans. A lot of that has to do with the look. Jim, the guy looks like maybe the bass player for 38 Special. Very long, very curly hair, Hulk Hogan mustache. It's quite a look. So he gets his first ever start. Grant Holmes goes 5 innings pitched, only gives up 3 hits, 1 earned run, and 8 strikeouts. I was so impressed with Grant Holmes in that. It's always cool to see a guy who has put in so much work and his window seemingly had passed, to see him not only make a big league roster, but to make an impact on a big league roster.
You know, what's crazy is I watch this show, and you guys, like most baseball fans now, are just intoxicated with strikeouts. You know, Paul Skeens is top of the line. You know, he gets to 100 strikeouts in 13 games. Which is amazing. You go straight to that 8 strikeout performance in less than 6 innings pitch. That's where we are in baseball now. Everyone's swinging for the fences, and everyone's trying to get the strikeouts. Do you appreciate still, with the Greg Maddoxes of the world, would you appreciate them now, the 74-pitch, 94-pitch complete game efforts where, you know, 1 pitch ground out, 2-pitch ground out, 3-pitch pop up, and it's a 6-pitch inning and he's on the bench again? Does it have to be a strikeout to wow you anymore? Are you so caught in the moment of modern day baseball-ush that you can't really enjoy a pitching performance where we get ground outs and pop ups?
I think I appreciate it even more now because there's so much emphasis on strikeouts. I love an efficient performance,
right,
and from the mound. And I don't think there's anything that impresses me more is when a pitcher gets a win, has a good outing, and you look and see how he did it with efficiency. Ground ball pitchers, pop-up pitchers. Absolutely you need that. And especially for the long run, when those strikeouts adding up, that's also pitch counts adding up.
That's right. Wear and tear. You guys talk about it on the show all the time, the wear and tear of the arms. And I think, getting back to the Greg Maddux style of pitching would benefit a lot of people's longevity, not only for a season, but for a career as well. As Emily Grace gets ready to join you, I just want to say that one of my favorite things to watch, I don't catch every episode, but as a baseball guy, I enjoy watching this show all the time. So thanks for my cameo performance on here today. It meant a lot for me to hop in here, to literally come out of the bullpen until you get your starting pitcher back. Well,
it means a lot to us as well. Thank you, Jim, for joining us. E.G., I'm sure you would echo that. Not only is Jim the godfather of the Pennant Grace, constantly plugging the show, giving us encouragement and tips, also the godfather of my daughter, Millie. She never just calls him Jim Dunaway. She always says, my godfather, Jim Dunaway.
Yeah, big fan of Millie, too.
Yep. E.G. joining us from T-Town.
Hello.
How is it there? Is it warm by chance?
It is so hot. Thank you guys for being patient, but more importantly, thank you, Dunaway, for jumping on with us. That means the world that we got some insight, but I know some people are probably saying you landmine the Braves. Has that been in the chat yet?
No landmining. Completely professional performance by the legend that is Jim Dunaway.
Awesome.
Very comfortable here in the studio, by the way. The temperature is perfect. Almost a little chilly.
Oh, well, if only I can relate. I'm getting in my car right now to get some air conditioning. So let me know if you guys can hear me when it clicks over. But what have you guys been chatting about so far?
So we were going through a little trade deadline talk, both for his Tampa Bay Rays and our Atlanta Braves, and then started in on that Brewers recap just going through that first game. Before we pick up on game 2 of the series with Milwaukee, I wanted to get your grade, a letter grade. Remember, everyone, EG, very good student at Georgia Southern, probably on like a list, a roll, honor roll, dean's list, things that I was never on. Letter grade, I'm giving it a B+, getting Jorge Soler. We talked all along, biggest need, outfield bat, and they got that. What would be your grade for Atlanta?
Okay, so initially I think I was like most Braves fans, and I expected more, so I was let down in a sense. Initially, I would be like C-. However, when you look at the stats, when you think about what's to come in the next few weeks with Michael Harris, potentially Ozzie, Freed coming back, I'll go B+, actually.
Okay. Matching grades there. Matching grades. Low expectations, not only the key to happiness as a baseball fan, but really the key to happiness in life. I've gotten so far on low expectations, trust me. So picking back up with that series with Milwaukee, talked about Grant Holmes in game 1, what a great performance that was. Game 2, get the win. We see once again Bryce Elder gets called up, turns in a strong performance before going back down. Now, he's made a habit out of doing this, and I hope has earned a lot of stock with the fan base and seeing the value that Bryce Elder has brought in a pretty difficult role to be called up and go back down and called up and go back down. Elder goes 6.1 innings pitched, only 5 hits, only 1 earned run, and he has 7 strikeouts. I thought a good performance from him.
Yeah, and I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. For him to transition so much in the minors, being called up, always having that kind of strong performance, I think the consistency is starting to stick. I think there's a bad taste in Braves fans' mouths with Bryce Elder, because when it's bad, it's pretty bad.
Right.
But he kind of has this habit, like you said, of he'll come out really strong. And I think it's kind of like me in my poker game. Like when I have the chips, I don't do as well. But when I'm playing from behind, I seem to magically play better. But when I'm comfortable and chip leader at the table, it's just not really a good scene. I feel that could be kind of said about Bryce Elder. When he's not playing from behind literally, but mentally, like I need to prove something, he's able to do that.
Yeah, I'm going to have to confirm that with John Lunsford on the Poker Talk. Not just all good from the mound in Game 2, also from the offensive side. Really cool to see Jared Kelenic have such a big game in front of so much of his family. Big homecoming from him, having grown up going to games in that stadium as a kid, now playing there. And he has a home run and a double in Game 2. That was really cool to see.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said, too, about those situations where you're playing in front of your family, you're in a place that has a lot of memories. This could be kind of a turning corner for him to get him back in the groove. We always say that baseball is a game of momentum, but it's also a game of feel. So if he feels good, especially in that setting, that's huge for him. And if multiple players, which what we're seeing, I don't know how much you talked about it with Dunaway, but it seems like offensively it's starting to match the pitching. So, for example, like Chris Sale, he didn't have his best game, but finally the offense allowed him to do that. He didn't have to be perfect like he has been. And at times he was completely perfect and the offense lost the game. So I think that that there's something to be said about the continuity starting to come together. I think Braves fans are encouraged by that for sure.
Speaking of playing in front of family, Emily Grace McWhorter, former lacrosse great in the state of Georgia, high school lacrosse player. I'm assuming half that sideline probably would have been your family for any given game. Is that accurate?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I went to a private school. We were like half A. We were single A, but it felt like we were like a quarter of an A.
Right.
And lacrosse, I was actually on the inaugural team for Mount Vernon. And I actually, since I was asked, I scored the first ever goal in Mount Vernon with lacrosse history.
Big time.
Yep.
A lot
there
for
was
mom,
a lot
for mom and dad to cheer for there. I'm sure my parents would have loved something to cheer for. Unfortunately, it wasn't in the cards for them. Also in that game, by the way, Austin Riley, who continues to play well, he was 4 for 5 in Game 2, had a really big day at the plate. Carrying that over into Game 3, to your point about the offense picking up some of that so it doesn't just rest solely on the pitcher. Get the win in Game 2, 5-1. and then get the win yesterday as well. Like you said, Chris Sale only goes 5.2 innings pitched. Not his best day, gives up 6 hits, only 2 earned runs, 6 strikeouts, which is low for him. But we get quite the show from Matt Olson and Travis d'Arnaud. Back-to-back, belly-to-belly home runs twice in the same game. And not only that, all solo shots, which I thought was crazy.
It was awesome to see. I love the post-game interview with d'Arnaud. He was asked about going back-to-back with Olson, and he said, I always tell Matt that anything he can do, I can do better. And I thought that was so fitting for the occasion. But it's encouraging. And our friends over at the Hammer Territory podcast, they also do a great show. And kind of their understated player for them that really hasn't talked about enough is Travis d'Arnaud. I feel like we've done a good job of emphasizing his importance, but now it's more than ever. When you look at his stats, he really has kept us in games and won games for us. And it's not something you'd expect. Now, Matt Olson, on the other hand, I love to see him coming live at the plate. Could this be that he's starting to turn the corner? This is where it gets grooving? Maybe. I'm hesitant to get too excited because we've been excited before and then the offense just hits a pothole and it's just like, holy cow, it just diminishes overnight. But it feels different this time. And I think the start of that were those back-to-back solo shots.
Yeah, it's really good to see. And, to your point, too, about Travis d'Arnaud, with Sean Murphy's struggles, really since he's come back from being injured, it's been even more appreciated and needed from Travis d'Arnaud. So good point there. By the way, Chris Sale, going back, the latest pitcher power rankings on MLB.com, Chris Sale at number 3. So still a guy that's in contention for the Cy Young. So on the back-to-back, the last time we saw that happen for the Atlanta Braves, June 13th, 1998. And listen to some of these names I'm going to give out. That was Javi Lopez and Andrew Jones. So 2 guys whose numbers are retired there in Truist Park. The time before that, and this is the only times in franchise history, this is the longest continually running franchise in Major League Baseball, Fred McGriff and David Justice, and that was back on August the 25th of 1993. Partner, what were you doing in August of 93 and June of 98?
So August of 93, my parents were probably pregnant with my oldest brother.
Okay.
They were living in Atlanta. I think they got married in 1991. I need to fact check that. August of 1998, or was it August again?
It was June of 98.
June of 98, my middle brother had just been born, Jake, in February, I think. And I was not even a thought.
Okay, there you go.
Not even a thought.
June of 98, I was going into my sophomore year of college. August of 93, I had just started or was about to start high school. What about that?
Oh, my goodness.
Fred McGriff, Hall of Famer. Andrew Jones, soon to be Hall of Famer. Okay. Up next, and I could not think of better timing for this for Atlanta, a 4-game series with Miami.
Yes.
If you
I'm so excited.
You're the Braves, you're now 6.5 games back. You got the 4th best record in the National League. Buster only talked about this on the next round. If you missed that interview, make sure you check that. That's been podcasted there for you to listen to. Buster, always great stuff there. And they talked a lot of Braves today. The Phillies are 3-7 in their last 10. They've lost 4 in a row. And so not only is Atlanta winning, but Philadelphia's come back down a little bit, at least for the time being. So Atlanta has a chance. If you have some momentum, what is a better scenario for you than to get a 4-game series against Miami?
I mean, we could not ask for better timing. However, I do want to be maybe a realist that Braves fans don't want to hear right now. The Braves have not struggled against good teams. I'm going to be honest. I think we are over 500 along with the Phillies and the Dodgers of playoff contention teams. I need to fact check that. But basically, we're good in those situations. It's the teams like the White Sox, the Nationals, the Rockies that we've struggled against. I want to see a statement. I want to see a 4-game sweep. I don't want to split the series. It needs to be a door slammed shut on the Marlins. Also, this Marlins team, no one's going to recognize it because of the trade deadline.
Right.
They were sellers.
They look a lot different. One of the few big-time sellers that we saw, we talked about that with Jim, with his Rays and the Miami Marlins. So the state of Florida was selling.
Yeah. So, part of me is I'm probably a little more anxious than I should be about this series, considering how we have fared against teams like this all season. In that same breath, though, it does feel like we're turning a new leaf, and to get these 4 games under our belt would be extremely important, especially the month of August. When you look at how the Phillies fare and the Braves schedule, we're very, very favorable. Think about this, too. If we build momentum going into that last series of August against the Phillies at home, or are we away, actually? We might be away in Philadelphia.
Let me check that.
Check that for me. Regardless, if we have gone on a heater, that would be incredible to go into that series really hot. Another stat I did hear from Hammer Territory, when the Braves signed Soler in 2021, after that, the Braves went 17-3 with him on the roster. That's encouraging.
It really
but
is.
It's just, I'm a little hesitant, truthfully, because I do think that the schedule is going to be favorable. We've talked about that in previous episodes, but you have to capitalize on those games. You just do. There's no way around it.
To your talk on the schedule, that's the Marlins for 4 at home, day off. And then you have the Brewers, just played, coming to Truist. And then you go back on the road. Colorado, San Francisco, and the Angels, day off. And then you welcome the Phillies to Truist Park.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Especially the Angels will be away. Friend of the show, Ben Joyce. Hopefully we'll see him pitching. Well, I don't know if we hope to see him pitching because he's been doing really good lately.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
But regardless, we do want Ben to do well. I like that series. I like how we fare there. See an old friend in Ron Washington. The Giants, I feel like that would be the one I have circled of could go either way a little bit. Rockies, I feel good about. Marlins, and then I like that Phillies we cap it off with in August, end of August.
So a couple of days off mixed in there as well is always nice. So the Marlins, 40-68, they're 25 games back, 6-4 out of their last 10, and as we talked about, they were one of the few teams that were all-out sellers. Expectations we also talked about. I know you want to sweep. Hopefully you'll be happy if they get 3 out of 4. Will that put at least a half smile on your face? A smirk?
Yes,
okay,
will.
Okay, we'll take a smirk. Just real quick, some starters we've got in Game 1 tonight. Max Meyer for the Fish taking on Charlie Morton. Would love to see a nice bounce back from Uncle Charlie. The special, Spencer Schwellenbach coming off his best career start against the dreaded TBD for Miami. TBD continues, this time for the Braves. So 3-4, the Braves don't have a pitcher listed. Kyle Turner is on the mound for the Marlins in Game 3, and then Edward Cabrera in Game 4. Most feel like that's going to be, in some order, Max Fried and Ronaldo Lopez. Would be a massive boost to see those two guys back healthy, pitching, and if we can get out of those with those two guys doing relatively well, I think would do a lot for the confidence of the fan base.
I agree. Max Fried, he is scheduled to be back up tomorrow, I'm pretty sure. So that's obviously encouraging. And I think it goes back to as well, Braves fans need to kind of remember that as much as we've lost, everyone's kind of coming back at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So Michael Harris, it seemed like forever ago when we said August 14th or 15th, and now that's in 2 weeks, less than.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to get production back, which is huge. And I think a lot of that, people were wondering about the starting pitcher, we didn't do anything really there. And I also heard that the special, Spencer Schwellenbach, he was discussed in a lot of the trade options, and the Braves weren't willing to sell him, which I love. I think I would rather have Schwellenbach on our roster than really, I don't want to say anyone because I know there would probably be someone that would be a good get, but I think that was very telling of the confidence that the Braves have in him, and it's encouraging to see him continue to do well, which at this point in the season, he could have bottomed out by now, but his trajectory just keeps going up.
Had they traded the special, you would have seen me doing this show with guns a-blazing. I'd have come in here firing, all angry, and Yosemite Sam.
I agree. Yosemite.
But yeah, Yosemite Sam. That did not happen, thankfully, and I'm here. I'm happy. Braves are playing well, and I'll be honest, I'm looking well. I'm dressed in Roback today, and you may not know this, but when this was ordered, I went to roback.com, going to check out and buy it, but before I hit purchase, I entered the code PG20 at checkout. It saved 20% to style and profile. You cannot beat that, partner.
Guys, it is such a good deal. We love Roback at the Pennant Grace. I'm actually looking at ordering some stuff for fall camp because it is so hot out here and I still want to look put together, but also a little cooler than the attire I've been in so far. So girls, if you need something a little more professional looking, that is still very cute, modest, Roback has that. Guys, you can't go wrong with Roback. Mikey will be packing Roback when we head across the pond to see Taylor Swift in a few weeks.
There you go.
I'm like, yes, absolutely. The American flag on the back, iconic. Use PG20 at checkout. Ush, thank you for being patient with me as I was a few minutes late to call time, but I appreciate it.
Patience is a virtue. Whether you're a baseball fan or whether you're hosting a show about baseball, it always pays to be patient. Let's get that series win against the Marlins. We'll be back here Monday at 12:15. We'll have that Marlins series to talk about Milwaukee again. There'll be a lot of other things kind of going on. Have a little bit of time under our belt to gauge what we've seen from our new arrivals. And so plenty to talk about Monday. Join us 12:15 Central Time right here on the Pennant Grace. Thank you for having us, Braves Country.